Imperator Zyndral of the Corthalan Empire studied the tactical display with satisfaction. 3,000 warships surrounded Earth's solar system, positioned at every major transit point. His military strategists had spent 18 months planning this invasion. They had analyzed human defensive capabilities, identified weak points in their orbital infrastructure, and calculated that total conquest would take no more than 48 hours. Status report. Zyndral commanded from his throne aboard the command dreadnought Eternal Conquest. All ships in position, Imperator, reported War Master Orthil, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the bridge lights. Human defensive forces are deploying to intercept positions. We detect 73 military vessels taking formation. Intelligence estimates they will attempt to defend their homeworld despite being outnumbered 40-1. As expected, Zyndral said. The Corthalan Empire had conquered 47 civilizations over the past 3,000 years. Every species followed the same pattern when facing overwhelming force. They fought desperately, accepted inevitable defeat, and eventually integrated into the Empire as subject worlds. Humanity would be no different. Transmit our terms, Zyndral ordered. Total surrender within 12 hours, or we commence orbital bombardment. Standard protocol. The transmission was sent. The Empire waited for the equally standard response, defiant rejection followed by hopeless military resistance that would justify the conquest. What arrived was not standard. Imperator, Orthil said, confusion evident in his clicking mandibles. We are receiving a response from Earth. It is not from their military command. It is from someone identifying themselves as Ambassador Lyric Dane of the Earth Cultural Exchange Initiative. Cultural exchange? Zyndral repeated incredulously. We surround their planet with 3,000 warships and they send a cultural ambassador? The message requests that you view the attached data before proceeding with military action, Orthil explained. It is labeled as an appeal to reason. Zyndral laughed, a harsh sound that echoed across the bridge. Play it. Let us hear what this human thinks reason sounds like when facing annihilation. The holographic display activated, showing a human woman with silver hair and calm eyes that suggested intelligence rather than fear. She spoke with a clarity that somehow commanded attention despite her species being hours from potential extinction. Imperator Zyndral, I am Ambassador Lyric Dane. I understand you have come to conquer Earth and integrate humanity into your empire. I will not appeal to your mercy, as I suspect you have little for species you consider inferior. Instead, I will appeal to your intelligence, which I suspect is considerable given your empire's longevity. Before you commit to military action, I ask that you consider what you would actually gain from conquering us, and what you would lose. Zyndral leaned forward. The human's tone was neither defiant nor submissive. It was analytical. Curious. You have conquered 47 civilizations, Lyric continued. You have added their resources and populations to your empire. But Imperator, what have they contributed beyond labor and materials? Have any of those civilizations enriched the Corthalan culture? Have they added to your art, your music, your philosophy? Or have they simply been absorbed and forgotten, their unique perspectives lost in the machinery of your empire? She paused, and her expression became earnest. Humanity is offering you something different. Not surrender. Not resistance. But exchange. We propose a 12-month cultural exchange program. We will send 1,000 humans to your capital world. Not soldiers. Not spies. Artists, musicians, teachers, philosophers, scientists, and storytellers. They will share human culture with your people. In exchange, you will send 1,000 Corthalans to Earth. They will experience humanity without conquest, without subjugation, without the filter of military occupation. Zyndral's amusement faded. This is absurd. You cannot negotiate cultural exchange while surrounded by invasion fleets. We are not negotiating, Lyric replied calmly. We are proposing an alternative that benefits you more than conquest. At the end of 12 months, if you still choose to invade, we will not have gained any military advantage. Our defenses will be no stronger. But you will have gained something far more valuable. You will have gained understanding. you will know what you are destroying. And perhaps you will realize that some things are worth preserving rather than conquering. The transmission ended. Silence filled the command bridge. Finally, Ortho spoke. This is a stalling tactic. They hope to use 12 months to prepare better defenses or appeal to other galactic powers for assistance. Perhaps, Zyndral admitted. But their proposal is strategically meaningless. Even with 12 months, they cannot build sufficient forces to challenge us. And no other power would intervene on behalf of a species facing legitimate conquest under galactic law. He considered the proposal. The Corthalan Empire was built on military might and industrial efficiency. But Zyndral had studied the history of collapsed empires. Many fell not through military defeat but through cultural stagnation. Through becoming so focused on conquest that they forgot how to create anything worth conquering for. We accept their proposal, Zyndral announced. With conditions. The exchange will last 6 months, not 12. And our invasion fleet remains in position throughout. At any sign of military buildup or deception, we proceed with immediate conquest. Imperator, this is unprecedented, Ortho protested. The Empire has never accepted cultural exchange as an alternative to conquest. Which is precisely why we should try it, Zyndral replied. In 3,000 years, the Empire has absorbed 47 civilizations and gained exactly nothing beyond resources and labor. Perhaps it is time to discover if there is more to conquest than subjugation. Besides, if this human trick fails or proves to be a stalling tactic, we lose nothing but 6 months. And if it succeeds in the way they claim, we gain knowledge that could reshape the Empire. The agreement was formalized within hours. Earth sent its 1,000 cultural ambassadors. The Corthalan Empire sent its 1,000 observers. And both sides waited to see what would happen when warriors encountered artists instead of armies. Admiral Harrow Stellan commanded Earth's defensive fleet from the bridge of the UHS Sentinel. He watched the civilian transport ships depart for Corthalan space with a mixture of pride and dread. This is insane, muttered his tactical officer, Commander Finkurashi. We are sending our best artists and teachers to an empire that could decide to execute them all if they get bored with the experiment. It is the only strategy that has a chance of working, Harrow replied. We have 73 ships. They have 3,000. We could fight and die honorably, or we could try something they have never encountered before. Ambassador Dane believes that exposing the Corthalans to human culture will make us too valuable to destroy. I choose to believe her. And if she is wrong? Then we fight and die honorably anyway, Harrow said grimly. But at least we will have tried something other than hopeless military resistance. On the Corthalan capital world of Cortha Prime, the first human ambassadors arrived to a reception that was more curious than hostile. The Corthalans had expected defeated enemies or servile subjects. What they received were people who seemed genuinely excited to share their culture. Among the human ambassadors was Dr. Elian Moss, a musician who specialized in emotional resonance theory. He had volunteered knowing that the Corthalans might kill him if the exchange failed. But he also knew that music was one of humanity's greatest achievements, and if anything could bridge the gap between species, it would be the universal language of sound. His first performance was in the Imperial Cultural Center before an audience of high-ranking Corthalans who attended more from duty than interest. Elian stood on stage with his quantum violin, an instrument that could produce sounds across spectrums that human ears could not detect but that Corthalan auditory sensors could process. He began to play. The first notes were simple. A melody that spoke of loneliness, of isolation, of watching stars from a small planet and wondering what existed beyond. Then the music grew, incorporating complexity as humanity discovered fire, developed agriculture, built civilizations. The Corthalans in the audience began to lean forward. Their auditory sensors were registering emotional frequencies they had never experienced from their own music. The composition was not just sound. It was story. It was history. It was the entire journey of a species expressed in acoustic form. Elian played through humanity's wars, through their triumphs and tragedies, through their art and science and philosophy. He played the confusion of first contact with alien species, the fear of being judged inferior, the desperate hope that somewhere in the vast galaxy there was a place for humanity. And he played the moment when humans decided to send artists instead of armies, the moment when they chose to share rather than fight, the moment when they gambled everything on the belief that understanding could triumph over conquest. When the music ended, the cultural center was silent. Then, slowly, the Corthalans began to click their mandibles together, the equivalent of applause in their culture. But it was different from the polite recognition usually given to performers. This was something deeper. Something that suggested they had experienced something transformative. "What was that?" asked High Curator Vreshka, approaching Elian after the performance. "Our analysis indicates your music contained emotional data that our own compositions lack. How did you create such complexity?" "It is not complexity," Elian explained. "It is honesty. Human music is not designed to be perfect. It is designed to express what we feel: joy and pain, hope and despair, love and loss. We put our entire emotional range into our art because we believe that sharing our inner experiences is how we connect with each other. But you are offering this to us," Breshka said. "To conquerors who came to destroy you. Why? Because we believe that anyone who experiences what we have to offer will not want to destroy it," Elian replied simply. "You came to conquer resources. We are showing you that humanity is more than resources. We are experiences. We are perspectives. We are stories. And stories are more valuable than territory." Similar exchanges happened across Kortha Prime. Human visual artists demonstrated techniques that created emotional responses the Korthalans had never experienced. Human chefs introduced flavors that stimulated Korthalan senses in unprecedented ways. Human philosophers presented ethical frameworks that challenged assumptions built over millennia of imperial conquest. And perhaps most importantly, human teachers began working with young Korthalans, showing them that learning could be exploration rather than memorization. That creativity could exist alongside discipline. That different perspectives enriched rather than threatened cultural identity. Meanwhile, on Earth, the 1,000 Korthalan observers were experiencing their own transformation. Ambassador Lyric Dane personally guided many of them through human cultural institutions, museums, theaters, libraries, concert halls, and universities. One observer, a military strategist named Korthex, found himself in the Museum of Human Conflict standing before exhibits documenting humanity's most devastating wars. "You preserve records of your failures?" Korthex asked, genuinely confused. The Korthalan Empire deleted records of military defeats. They were considered shameful and counterproductive to maintaining imperial morale. "We preserve them so we learn from them," Lyric explained. "Every war in those exhibits taught us something about the cost of violence, about the importance of diplomacy, about the need to find alternatives to conflict. We do not hide our mistakes. We study them so we can avoid repeating them." "But this makes you appear weak," Korthex protested. "It makes us wise," Lyric corrected. "Strength is not pretending you have never failed. Strength is learning from failure and becoming better. That is why we sent artists instead of armies to your world. Because we learned from thousands of years of warfare that there are better ways to resolve conflicts." Korthex studied the exhibits in silence. His species had conquered for 3,000 years without ever questioning whether conquest was the only path to growth. But standing in a museum built by a species that had chosen to preserve their mistakes rather than hide them, he began to wonder if the Korthalan Empire had been wrong about what strength actually meant. 3 months into the exchange, Imperator Zyndral summoned Ambassador Lyric to his throne room. She arrived expecting either early termination of the agreement or demands for modifications. What she received was something entirely different. "I have reviewed reports from every Korthalan observer on Earth," Zyndral said without preamble. "And I have personally experienced several of your cultural offerings here on Kortha Prime. I have a question that your philosophers might appreciate." "I am listening," Lyric replied. "If we conquer Earth, we gain resources and labor," Zyndral said. "Standard imperial expansion. But if we do not conquer Earth, what do we gain? Lyric smiled. It was the right question. You gain everything we are offering now, but multiplied. You gain access to human creativity without destroying the conditions that make us creative. You gain partnership with a species that has spent 10,000 years developing art, science, and philosophy. You gain the ability to learn from us as we learn from you. And most importantly, you gain proof that the Corthalan Empire can grow through cooperation rather than only through conquest. That sounds idealistic, Zyndral observed. It is practical, Lyric countered. Imperator, your empire has conquered 47 civilizations. How many of them have contributed anything culturally significant to Corthalan society? How many have added to your art or philosophy or understanding of the universe? Zyndral was silent. The answer was obvious. None of them had contributed anything because conquered populations focused on survival, not creativity. Now imagine if you had offered those 47 civilizations partnership instead of subjugation. Lyric continued. Imagine the art they could have created, the scientific discoveries they could have made, the philosophical insights they could have contributed. You would have an empire not just of territory, but of ideas. Not just of subjects, but of collaborators. That is what you gain by not conquering Earth. You are suggesting we change 3,000 years of imperial policy based on 6 months of cultural exchange, Zyndral said. I am suggesting you expand your definition of what the empire can be, Lyric replied. You have proven you can conquer. Now prove you can create. Prove that the Corthalan Empire is more than military force. Prove that you can build something that lasts not through fear but through genuine achievement. Zyndral stood from his throne and walked to the observation window overlooking Cortha Prime. Below, Corthalan citizens went about their lives in a society built on 3,000 years of military conquest. But something had changed in recent months. There was music in the streets, human music that Corthalans were learning to play. There was art in public spaces that challenged traditional Corthalan aesthetics. There were discussions in educational institutions about concepts that had never been considered before. You have infected my empire with ideas, Zyndral said. We have shared ideas, Lyric corrected. Infection implies unwanted invasion. Everything we have offered has been accepted voluntarily by Corthalans who found value in it. Zyndral turned to face her. And if I order the invasion to proceed anyway? Then you will conquer a planet and lose everything you have gained in the past 3 months, Lyric said calmly. Your people have experienced human culture. They know what you would be destroying. Some will support the decision out of loyalty. Others will question whether conquest is truly necessary. You will win the military victory and lose the cultural victory that you have already achieved. You are a dangerous negotiator, Zyndral observed. I am a teacher, Lyric replied. And I believe the Corthalan Empire is capable of learning. The 6-month exchange period ended. Imperator Zyndral summoned his war council to make the final decision. Would the Empire proceed with conquest, or would they accept the unprecedented alternative that humanity had proposed? War Master Orthel argued for immediate invasion. We have given them 6 months. They have not surrendered. We should proceed with the original plan. But High Curator Vreshka, who had never before attended a war council, spoke in opposition. If we conquer them, we destroy the source of what we have gained. Human creativity emerges from their freedom. Subjugation would end that. We would gain a planet and lose something far more valuable. The debate lasted hours. Military strategists argued for conquest. Cultural advisors argued for partnership. Economic analysts calculated profits both ways. And throughout it all, Zyndral remained silent, weighing 3,000 years of tradition against 6 months of transformation. Finally, he spoke. The invasion is cancelled. Earth will be offered partnership status in the Corthalan Empire. Not as conquered territory. Not as subject world. As equal partner with full autonomy and cultural independence. In exchange, we will formalize the cultural exchange program and establish permanent diplomatic relations. The throne room erupted in shocked discussion. Orthel's mandibles clicked in protest. Imperator, this violates every precedent in imperial history. Then we create new precedent, Zyndral said firmly. The Empire has spent 3,000 years conquering. We have built the largest military force in this region of the galaxy. We have proven our strength through 47 successful conquests. But humanity has shown us that there are forms of power we have never considered. The power to change minds. The power to inspire. The power to create rather than destroy. I would rather rule an empire known for its cultural achievements than one known only for its military conquests. He turned to the holographic display showing Earth floating in space, still surrounded by the invasion fleet. Order all ships to withdraw to neutral positions. Transmit our offer to Earth. And prepare for something the Corthalan Empire has never done before. Prepare for peace built on mutual respect rather than forced submission. On Earth, Admiral Harrow Stellan watched the Corthalan fleet begin to withdraw and felt something he had not allowed himself to feel in 6 months. Hope. They are pulling back, then announced, monitoring the fleet movements. All 3,000 ships moving to neutral positions beyond the system. We are receiving a transmission from Imperator Zyndral, the communications officer reported. It is addressed to Ambassador Dane and the people of Earth. The transmission played across every screen on the planet. Zyndral's image appeared, his insected features somehow less threatening than they had been 6 months ago. People of Earth, Zyndral began. 6 months ago, the Corthalan Empire came to conquer your world. We expected resistance. We expected defiance. We expected to add another civilization to our list of military victories. What we received instead was something we had never encountered in 3,000 years of expansion. You offered us culture. You offered us art. You offered us perspectives that we did not know we were missing. He paused, and when he continued, his tone carried something that might have been respect. Ambassador Dane told me that some things are worth preserving rather than conquering. She was correct. Humanity has proven that you offer more as partners than you ever could as subjects. Therefore, the Corthalan Empire withdraws its invasion force and offers Earth full partnership status. We will maintain cultural exchange programs. We will establish diplomatic relations. We will work together as equals to explore what cooperation can achieve. This is unprecedented in Imperial history. But humanity has taught us that precedent can be changed when better alternatives exist. The transmission ended. Across Earth, people celebrated. They had faced annihilation and survived not through military might but through the power of shared humanity. Lyric stood in her office at the Cultural Exchange Initiative, watching the celebrations through her window. Elian joined her, his quantum violin case in hand. We did it, he said quietly. We convinced an empire to choose culture over conquest. We showed them a choice they did not know existed. Lyric corrected. They made the decision themselves. That is what makes this sustainable. They chose cooperation because they recognized its value, not because we forced them to accept it. Do you think it will last? Elian asked. I think we gave the galaxy something it desperately needed, Lyric replied. Proof that military force is not the only path to power. Proof that cultural influence can achieve what weapons cannot. Proof that a species can be strong enough to fight yet wise enough to choose peace instead. She turned to face him. The Corthalan Empire prepared for war. They brought 3,000 ships expecting military resistance. They had strategies for every defensive formation we might use. Every weapon we might deploy. Every tactic we might attempt. They were completely prepared for war. But they were not prepared for what we actually sent, Elian said, understanding. Exactly, Lyric agreed. We sent artists, musicians, teachers, philosophers, people whose only weapons were ideas and whose only strategy was honest communication. And that proved more powerful than any military force we could have assembled. That is humanity's gift to the galaxy. Not superior technology or tactical brilliance. The understanding that there are forms of strength that do not require violence. Months later, on Cortha Prime, Imperator Zyndral attended his first human-style concert. Dr. Elian Moss performed a new composition, one that incorporated both human and Corthalan musical traditions, creating something neither species could have created alone. As Zyndral listened, he reflected on the decision that had changed the Empire forever. They had come to Earth expecting another easy conquest. Instead, they had encountered a species that refused to be conquered through conventional means because they understood something the Empire had forgotten. True power was not the ability to destroy. True power was the ability to create. And creation required cooperation, not domination. The Empire would continue to grow. But now that growth would come through cultural exchange and diplomatic partnership rather than military conquest alone. Humanity had taught them a lesson that 3,000 years of victories had failed to convey. Sometimes the strongest response to overwhelming force was not matching that force, but refusing to engage with it entirely. By sending artists instead of armies, humanity had won a victory that military resistance could never have achieved. They had proven that ideas could conquer empires. And that lesson would echo across the galaxy for millennia to come. If you enjoyed this story, like the video and subscribe for more.